right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're going to start our conversation from the developments in Kaduna, where the Kaduna State House of Assembly did adopt a report by the other committee asking that they investigate the former government, the former administration led by Madam Nat'l El-Rufai. So, well, this morning we're joined by Professor Mike Ozekhome, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He's a visiting professor for Babalola University. Good morning, Prof. Good to see you. Been a while.
Good morning, my brother.
Thank you for joining us.
And my sister, good morning. Welcome, all Nigerians.
So, quite a number of issues we'll have to discuss today, Prof. So,
Nigeria is a living conversation, never ending.
Yeah, that's the interesting bit.
But it's always better to judge rather than to war.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, let's start off from this Kaduna matter, because quite a lot of people don't understand what's going on, because you have a lot of background about both gentlemen, the current governor and the former governor. And as a matter of fact, many thought that considering what they know about both of them, how cordial the relationship had been over time, they're surprised to see or to read about what is going on, so they can't exactly place it. So perhaps we'll let you tell the story about the background and what your impression is of what is going on right now.
Well, I just want to say that what God has joined together, politics always put asunder, because the stakes are always high. And man by nature wants to dominate. If you read Niccolo Machiavelli, that we have come to identify with the Machiavellian philosophy, he says in a nutshell that the end justifies the mean. It simply means that it's like the Hobbesian state of nature, animal kingdom. That is, you want to dominate, you want to assert, you want to throw your power around, because power itself is an aphrodisiac, an intoxicant. The more of it you have, the more of it you want. So I will look at it from that angle in analyzing what is going on in Kaduna, because I wouldn't say that I'm not close to both of them, El-Rufai and Ubasani, but I think I'm closer to Ubasani, the present governor, my very good friend. I recall that in 2005, it was Ubasani who actually called me to defend El-Rufai. I defended that case pro bono. El-Rufai had been indicted by the Senate and banned from holding office for 10 years because he had exposed the then Senate concerning corruption and their demands for bribe during the BPE exercise. So the Senate got angry, took umbrage, and then decided to ban him for 10 years. I went to court and got the indictment and the ban quashed by the Federal High Court, Abuja. They appealed. I went to the Court of Appeal and won the case. And when El-Rufai returned from abroad, from his own self-imposed exile, and he was being tried, Ubasani again called me with Balarabe, the present deputy governor. And I was there again for El-Rufai. So I would never have thought that these two gentlemen, for once, will ever fight. And guess what? The present deputy governor, Balarabe, was the immediate chief of staff to El-Rufai. So what has gone wrong? I wouldn't know. That was why I told you, because I asked Ubasani just 2 months ago in April. I said, what is going on? He gave me his own background, but I've learned not to judge matters by looking at one side, because a one-sided coin is a bad tender. I haven't heard the side of El-Rufai. But I would want to believe that a State House of Assembly should be left alone to do its own job, take its own decisions in accordance with the law. But if they are being teleguided, that would be too bad for Nigeria and democratic development. It doesn't deepen or widen the scope, the plenitude, and the amplitude of democracy.
Because many have also seen a similar page play out in different states in this country for two persons who were close, predecessor, successor, and things happen. For this particular case, where do you see this headed? I mean, is it early in the day? Because if the House of Assembly has adopted that recommendation that they probe the former governor, what could possibly be the case? Because many hypothesize saying the intention might be what? Indict him, stop him from something. What could it possibly be?
I'm not a Nostradamus, the man who saw tomorrow. Nor am I the oracle at Ile-Ife that will go gaze into the future to pronounce the next all need to be. So I wouldn't be able to know what the outcome would be. But I think that whatever happens, El-Rufai must be given his right to fair hearing. The Assembly has just merely made a recommendation and told the governor to implement it. The governor may look at it and feel, well, this is not worth the energy and the time. Let's face others may say 423 billion naira. They are accusing him of. It's not a small amount.
Yeah.
Let's dig in. So whatever the outcome will be, and don't forget, El-Rufai also has his own fundamental rights to protect. For example, he may decide to go to court to challenge the indictment itself. Maybe he could say he was not given a fair trial. He was never called. I don't know whether he was called to come and defend himself.
I think they said some of their former officials appeared, and then they had the documents. Yes. They did a good job in terms of last
service. It depends on whether El-Rufai himself was called. If he was called and he refused to appear, fair hearing would have been given, because you cannot force a person to come and enjoy his fair hearing. The other thing is, where was he called? Was he duly invited? Was he given an opportunity to defend himself? If he was, and he chose to stay away, that's another ballgame. So because I do not have all those details, it becomes peremptory for me to go.
What if he wasn't? What if he wasn't, and then his agents, I mean, the commissioners there were called? Can they be taken as the same thing?
No, you don't indict a person by proxy. No, you don't, particularly in a matter that has criminal connotations. You can't do that by proxy. So it has to be the person. If you are indicting the aides, that's for them. The very man involved. That's why I'm saying, was he given a fair hearing? If he was, that's another thing.
I mean, Mr. El-Rufai has been through a lot. Remember when the ministerial screening was going on? Yeah. You know, and then you just mentioned these cases before. It just feels like a lot keeps happening in his backyard, so to speak. Is there any way that he can? Should he just carry on as is? You know, should he continue like this? Because it does feel like there's acrimony everywhere that he has been in. You know, as governor. And then when he came out, he was on the list. Remember, he was on the list for ministerial screening, and then it was turned back. I think he was the only one, really, that had to go through that as well. And then now an indictment from a person who used to be his friend. Yeah. What's really going on here?
There are some people.
You're friends with him. What's happening?
No. There are some people who are controversial. If they do a little thing, it resonates everywhere. From the time indicted Obasanjo in his book, whom he later worked with and all that. I wouldn't know. It does appear that the environment is quite toxic, really. It's quite toxic. I think it has to do with local politics. And don't forget that politics is local. I think it has to do with also 2027. Oh. Politicians look to the next election. They don't look to the next dividends of democracy. As they are winning, after spending 1 year going around, they start campaigning. Campaigns have already started for 2027, even at the presidential level.
Oh dear.
That's why I have said we don't practice democracy, which was beautifully defined by Abraham Lincoln on 19th November 1863. During his Gettysburg Declaration as government of the people, for the people, and by the people. I say we practice electionocracy. That's what I call it in my neologism called Ozekhpedia. modeled after Wikipedia, Legapedia. I said we practice electionocracy, which is do one election, look forward to the next election.
What threat could El-Rufai possibly be posing to 2027? What threat could he possibly pose?
It's not necessarily that he will go for governorship, for example, because he has had this 2 term, but he will be interested in who comes there. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think Ayo has a few questions for you as well.
It's interesting that, I mean, we're talking about this now. By the way, I don't even know, sometimes I don't know how you will handle all the titles, Prof, High Chief, SAN, but, you know, that's not what we're talking about right now. You know, this issue, let me begin with from where you started, when you said what God has joined together, only politics can put asunder. I'd like to look to the future, Prof. How welcoming would this kind of scenario be for young people who want to get into politics, but they are afraid of these kinds of things? I remember, I think it was Chief Lamidi Adedibu who was quoted, late Chief Lamidi Adedibu, who was quoted as saying that, look, if you don't want what happened to your mom in 1865 to come out, don't go into politics. And now this is the kind of thing that you are. And even now you are saying that we're not practicing democracy, we're practicing electionocracy and the rest of it. So how should the young generation be looking at what is happening right now? I'm trying to foray into the future, Prof.
Yeah, I think the youth should not be afraid of going into politics because of what is happening. Rather, they should try to change the narrative and redefine the landscape. Because politics will continue to be politics. The Adedibu you referred to was the one who introduced politics of Amala. We have politics of Amala, politics of Begiri. You have politics of the stomach. You have politics of infrastructure of the stomach. I call it politics of Omisagwe and politics of Ukpoka in my own Ozekhome neologism. So the truth is that the politics of Nigeria has never really been for the common man and common woman. Wow. That's never really been about how we develop our country and our state.
Wow.
It has always been me, I, and myself. Me, I, and myself. That's never been about the people. If it were about the people, why would Nigeria, that was in the same place with India, got her independence in 1947, 30 years later, Nigeria. Today, India manufactures aircraft, except the turbine engine. They do their own cars, one of the biggest industrial hubs in the world. Where are we? Where are we? The handkerchief in my pocket here is from Singapore. So how have we used politics to develop Nigeria? It's an embarrassment. But I wouldn't say that the youth should now be afraid of going in because of what is happening. Rather, they should dare it, go in, and change the narrative. And shame our generation. But I do not know whether the youth are ready for that. I see them more on the social media. They want to be essays and PAs.
Yeah. Well, on that,
it's sad.
Yeah. Well, I guess the future will tell. But to this particular issue, where do you see it going? How do you see it ending? And what would you advise both parties to do?
I'd rather say let the law play out. I believe in due process. I believe in due process. Let the law play out.
You don't think a political solution would help?
There's nothing impossible about politics. In fact, politics is defined as the art of the possible. It's a game where you tell a person to go to hell in such a way that he looks forward to the journey. So there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies in politics. You'll be surprised that by tomorrow you will see them eating together, dancing together. PDP, APC, two sides of the same coin, for example. Those ruling today were all the big players in PDP. So in politics, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies. I won't be surprised if by tomorrow you see them come back together again. And that is why I'm always warning the people. Tread is tread softly. Don't join these people to fight their wars, because they will laugh at you later. They will come together as state captors, while you will be the one on the ground.
Well, speaking about the youth, Prof, quite a number of them don't understand the rationale behind why we had to resort to the old, which is now new, national anthem. They just want they seem to be lost in the whole thing. They thought two options: either we modify what we had before, or even if we're going to go with the old one, but we adopted the old one. You played a key role at that time too in the conference, I think part of which got you another famous name many have forgotten, the Cicero.
The Cicero of the 2014 conference.
Exactly. So
was conferred on me by the conference leadership, 2014. Yeah.
And they seem to have acceded to what you had suggested at the time.
Yeah, because that time I would say I played the role of a Nostradamus, the man who saw tomorrow. So what the National Assembly did last week, with the president assented on the 29th of May, was what I saw 10 years ago. Let me educate us further on this. A lot of Nigerians do not know the difference. They have criticized the reintroduction of the old national anthem, for example, on the ground that it was composed by Britain, a foreigner, Miss Bender, Francis Bender, and the music was sung by Lillian Williams. But they do not, they say, why do we criticize the name Nigeria? Niger area, as named by Miss Flora Louisa Shaw on 8 January 1897 in an article she wrote in the London Financial Times. That is because she was a foreigner, not necessarily. This one, that was because she was a foreigner. And she posed the name on us. We didn't agree to be called Nigeria, right? But in this case, a panel was set up pre-independence. Entries were invited from across the world. It was headed by Fela Showande, a great musicologist who trained in London. Panel of 6 was a Nigerian from Abeokuta. He headed the panel. And entries were received from all over the world: United States, UK, Senegal, Cyprus, Ghana, all over. And entries ended 31st March 1959. The prize was £100 for the best. It must be in English. Frances Bender won it. She donated the £100 to the Red Cross. She was a staff of the Federal Ministry of Internal Affairs, Labor and Welfare. Then for the composition, Lillian Williams won it. And she won £1,000. So it was a contest thrown open to the whole world. But for the flag, the Nigerian flag, it was to be only by Nigerians. And Michael Akinkumi won it. She was a student in England. So the entire national anthem was therefore indigenous, done by Nigerians, midwife by Nigerians, or like the name Nigeria. Now, having done that, we got that national anthem, which has the gusto, the gravitas to move Nigeria forward. But suddenly we came in 1978 with Arise, O Compatriots. At the 2014 National Conference we are talking about, made up of 492 members, and I think this is where Nigerians should continue to give credit to that 2014 National Conference, headed by late Justice Idris Legbo Kutugi of the Supreme Court, and Professor Bolaji Akinyemi was his deputy. I got up at the plenary session to move a motion that we reintroduce this old national anthem. It was hotly debated, and the 492 delegates, by way of consensus,
I remember this.
Agreed.
They stood up and they started singing.
Yes, they all, thank you.
Yeah,
they all stood up.
They started singing.
It was spontaneous. I'm not a nightingale or a Fela Nicola Bokuti or a Michael Jackson. But you see, listen to the lyrics and the meaning.
Okay, but you know, I want you to be able to talk about why it was changed. Because I think it's the historical context, maybe, that many people, there are two things. The historical context, many people don't have that.
That's what I'm giving now.
And then secondly, it's something that I've seen in an article that you wrote, which is that for many people, this hasn't put food on my table. Why is this important to me?
Well, nothing good comes too late. Why is it important? It's important because a national anthem, like a national constitution, is the identity card, is the birth certificate of such a nation. So it is very important. It can inspire. A national anthem can inspire. It can also kill your morale. For example, if you listen to the lyrics, listen to them. I will try with my hoarse voice. That's why I say I'm not a nightingale. Say, Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native flag. Though tribal tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigeria so are proud to serve a sovereign motherland. That's one. The second one now talks about the flag. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign in peace or battle honored. And this we count as gain. To hand to our children a banner without stain. You get that? We didn't leave out God in all this, talking about the youth, about the banner, about coming together. We brought in God. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. So, resonating that in 2 years later, I wrote this book. I will leave a copy with you. Nigeria, we hail thee. At pages 278 to 281. You will see the argument here and all that. So, resurrection of that national anthem is good for us. It moves us forward. It generates interest. It makes us to know that though tribe and tongue may differ, but in brotherhood, we must stand. That reminds me of the 1942 discussion between Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and Ahmadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto. Zik said, Ahmadu, let us forget our differences. Ahmadu Bello said, no, we cannot forget our differences. We must recognize our differences. You are Igbo, Easterner, and a Christian. I am Fulani, Northerner, and a Muslim. So we are different. It is in realizing our differences that we can decide to work together. So that took the argument, therefore, beyond late sage Chief Obafemi Awolowo's view that Nigeria was nothing but a piece of geographical expression. Which Tafawa Balewa later added that Nigeria was a piece of historical mistake. But we were trying to get to nationhood, which is what we are still yearning for today. We have not gotten it, mind you, nationhood. If you go around on weekends, you will see village unions, tribal unions, holding their meetings everywhere. How many times you see Nigerians coming to meet as Nigerians?
So, but isn't this anthem going to be lost with more people? Because many are also of the view, in fact, you get some people now who say, look, I'm not going to stand and sing or identify with that anthem because they feel that perhaps certain things are just out of place, and then it won't achieve the kind of results which in 2014
they are being
hypocritical.
Have. They are being hypocritical. Why do I say that?
Yeah, why?
Before last week, of course, I went to the National Assembly also on the 27th of May to defend my stance on it, to defend the reintroduction, because I don't shy away from these issues. Those people are being hypocritical because whenever students were protesting or the youth were protesting, like during the NSAS, or whenever people feel despondent, what do they normally do? What did they normally do? They would break out and say, and sing the old national anthem, which is now the new one. They would always say, Nigeria, we hate thee, to show that we are not happy with what is going on. We were better then. So whoever is opposing it now should learn to live with that beauty of it. Going forward, it's not necessary that we must forget history. The reason a vehicle has a large windshield in front, is to make you see the front, the future, right? But because you cannot forget the past, you have to have a small mirror by the side of the car to remind you of the past, of the back. Because today is the tomorrow you talked about yesterday. So whatever is good in history should be brought back. By the way, I don't know whether the federal government has brought back history now. History is it. If you don't have a history, you can't have it today. If you don't have it today, you can't have it tomorrow.
I mean, before we head over to, because Ayo is waiting on, there was a question I asked, just so people can understand, why was this anthem removed? Why did Arise, O Compatriots come up?
Oh, it came up during the military government of General Olusegun Obasanjo. Mm-hmm. They felt they wanted this one changed. They thought it was an English or a colonial relic. You know, we lowered the Union Jack on 1st October 1960 and hoisted the Nigerian flag. So some Nigerians there thought it was a colonially imposed anthem. But they didn't go deep into the history to know that it was actually autochthonous, indigenous, made by Nigerians, brewed by Nigerians, for Nigerians. The fact that these workers who were in the service of Nigeria were foreigners did not matter because entries came. They won. And it was headed, the panel was headed by a Nigerian. Fela Showande is there. 1959, March 31. So
Prof.
We cannot quarrel with it. If there's one thing I think this government has done right, I'm not a fantastic fan of the government, but if there's one thing I think they have done right, and they have gotten right, and I applaud them for it, is the reintroduction of this national anthem.
Okay, Prof, there is something significant.
Cement us together.
My apologies for butting in. There is something significant that you said earlier, Prof, about the fact that, you know, this sense of history thing and something that will bind us together as a people. Looking at history, people still ask the question, where are we going as a people? So now you've talked about this national anthem as something that will bring us all together. When it does bring us together, where are we going? So two issues that I'd like you to speak to very quickly. Number one is the fact that there are those who think that it was hurriedly done. So very little, if any, significant communication happens. So taking ownership is a problem. Second thing that I'd like you to speak to is the vision of Nigeria. Where is Nigeria going? Because there are those who are wondering, how can we know where we are going? We know where we are coming from, but there is no direction. So we seem to be going in different ways, 36 states, 36 directions. So Is this national anthem, in your view, significant enough to show us a national vision? So those questions are there. So those two questions, the question of communicating the idea of reintroducing this national anthem to Nigerians, and that of a vision for direction for the nation.
Well, I know that it was advertised that there would be a public hearing over the national anthem. That was how I heard. Nobody came to invite me specially. And if you are called, you should go and participate. If you do not participate, you should not cry later. Public hearing does not mean that you have to go to all the geopolitical zones over something like a national anthem. If you are talking about reintroduction or introduction of a brand new constitution, which I've always clamored for, because the present constitution is nothing but a schedule to decree number 24 of 1999, not made by the Nigerian people, not autochthonous, not indigenous, not legitimate. If you are talking about having a new constitution, for example, you must talk about going from not just geopolitical zone to geopolitical zone, but state to state, to allow Nigerians buy-in, as the 50 delegates did between May and September 1887 in America, when they met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to have a more perfect union. And 39 of the states signed for a new constitution. And it was subjected to them for a referendum. If we are talking about having a referendum like that to determine the vision, the way forward, which even answers your second question, that the beginning will be to go forward and have a new constitution to identify what we really want. How do we live together? Well, we are like a flight to no destination without a compass. If we decide to come together and say, look, this constitution itself was militarily imposed. We need our own constitution owned by the people. We must be able to start afresh on a tabula rasa. It was at that 1887 conference in America, National Convention, that they agreed on certain articles of faith: presidentialism, republicanism, executive presidency, the doctrine of separation of powers between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, a doctrine that had been propounded much earlier by Baron de Montesquieu, a great French philosopher. They also agreed on judicial review. That convention threw up great federalists like Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, who became the first American president, and after whom Washington, D.C. is named, John James, Thomas Jefferson. Do we have such a constitution that we can say we made for ourselves? So the vision of Nigeria should start from critically discussing ourselves. We did that at the 2014 National Conference, 492 delegates drawn from all strata of the Nigerian society, the youth, students, women, men, people with disability, elder statesmen and women, the military, the police, civil service, diplomatic corps, traditional institution, the labor movement, private sector, public sector. We all there. And we agreed on certain articles of faith. Over 600 recommendations were made. Only one of them we are talking about, the introduction of the old national anthem. They are there. Let this government dare go into those recommendations. Then you will see where Nigeria should be headed for. We are clear in our minds as to what we want or what we wanted. We should go back there. We cannot continue to pretend.
Well, what we are probably waiting for,
to pretend.
Prof.
We can't get it right that way.
Absolutely. I think perhaps what Nigerians, a good number of people will be looking for is a vision statement that says, okay, this is where we are going and all of that. But, you know, perhaps that's a matter for future deliberation. But there is this also, this issue also, from the very beginning of our conversation with you, Prof, the issue of the judiciary has played out one way or the other. Now, you are not unaware of the proposed salary increase for judicial office holders by as much as 300%. How significantly do you see that ending the myriad of issues that come up from time to time concerning the judiciary in terms of conflicting judgments, alleged corruption in the judiciary and all of that? Do you see that putting paid to the issue, or you think it's just one of those things? How significantly do you see that affecting anything?
300% increase. Some people are romanticizing over it. What is 300% increase? Haven't our prices increased by 600, 700%? Your liter of fuel, how much were we buying it before now? Was it not about 120 naira? Today it's about between 600 and 800 naira per liter. Go to the market, go and price tarodo, go and price tatashe, go and price tomatoes, go and price onions. Go and price palm oil, vegetable oil, beans, rice. A bag of rice today is between 80 and 120,000 naira. So when the labor is asking for huge money, over 500,000, though it sounds humongous and too much, and the government is offering 60,000 naira, the first thing you tell the government is to say, sir, this 60,000 cannot even buy a bag of rice. So, increasing judges' salary by how much? It means that a judge will still earn how much? In 2018, Shehu Sani told us that each senator was earning 30.8 million naira per month. Senator Shehu Sani, my very good friend and brother, he said for that, I think he was suspended for talking too much. A judge in America earns about $73,000 per annum. At the current conversion rate, that's up to 106 million naira per annum. In Canada, it's about 80,000 Canadian dollar. It's over 110 million naira. In Germany, it's about 79,000 euro, which is over 140 million naira per annum. How much does this 300% still come to? Anyway, I can just call it a living wage, going by the spirally inflation. Have you not seen convoys of ministers? Have you not seen convoys of governors? Have you ever seen the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who has the third arm of government, the judicial arm? Have you ever seen him in a convoy? So it's garbage in, garbage out. If you pay peanuts, then you get peanut returns in terms of putting. So we have been talking about corruption. I like the way you use the word alleged. Is it real? Is it a fantasy? People continue to corrupt. Some judges have been indicted for corruption, some dismissed, some suspended, and all that. But I will still want to tell you that it is like a little fly in the ointment. The generality of judges are not corrupt. They work with the fear of God. According to law, they may make mistakes that are not corruption-induced. Right? This one goes on. So, if you want judges to keep away from corruption, pay them very well. A hungry judge that is receiving 500,000 naira a month, which is what most of them have been receiving, who has a wife, maybe 2 or 3 wives, who has children. The children want to go to good schools like yours. The politicians' children are all abroad in Ivy Leagues, the best universities, from Yale to Harvard to Oxford to Cambridge to Princeton. Then these people, the judge's child, is going to a local school at Gwagwalada, where they are singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are." Then you want the judge to retire to no house. He has no house to retire to. He can't even train his children.
But
then you want him to, then you will see a politician, a desperate politician, coming around, particularly during the election period, to pass through some bad egg lawyers who themselves are complicit, some of them, who must be fished out. Then you are offering that judge 200 million naira. Whiskey once said if he saw 1 million naira that he will collapse. Former INEC chairman, when they accuse him of corruption, he said, me, if I see 1 million naira, I will collapse. Then you are offering a hungry judge who cannot pay his children's school fees, who cannot feed well, who has no house to go to, 200 million naira. It will take an Archangel Michael or a Gabriel from heaven to resist. I am not saying I should not be mistaken. I'm not saying they should be corrupt or they should therefore, because of their hunger, accept bribe. I'm not saying that. I should not be mistaken. They should still resist it. They should still try. I will say try. They should still try to resist it, knowing that it is iniquitous, that it will take them to hell, because you are taking bribe to do justice in a bad way, to mango justice. I will still say they should resist it. But for God's sake, let us help them to resist it. We must help them to help themselves. That's the point I'm making.
All right, Prof, we need to wrap up, but if we could do this in less than a minute. Well, what about those who say that this doesn't, if we really want to impact the administration of justice positively, we need to look at the way judges are appointed?
I agree with you. Judges are, appointment is the real process, is what is the foundation. I do not believe, for example, that elevation to higher court should be automatic because you were in high court or federal high court, you must go to the court of appeal. You were in court of appeal, you must go to the Supreme Court. Justice Nicky Toby, one of the best we ever had, was a professor of law in University of Maiduguri before he went to the bench. Justice Suputa came straight from the high court to the Supreme Court. He became one of the best jurists, the oracle of the law that we ever had. So it shouldn't be automatic that because you were a judge of the high court of appeal, you must go to the Supreme Court. Give opportunity, a level playing ground for nominations and interviews. Bring in private practitioners who want to help the country. Bring in academicians, professors of law who want to help the country. Let them compete with those who are currently on the bench. Let the best go there.
Would you accept it?
So the process of appointment is therefore important. But also, let me also say this. I've had a lot of people criticize judges to say, oh, they allow their children to come there. I do not know whether they throw their way around. But let me also make this point very clear. A child should not be deprived of his legitimate aspirations in a country simply because his father is a judge. If he goes through a normal interview with other people and he passes, for God's sake, give it to him. Because not to give it to him will be making to suffer a disability.
Prof, would
because
you
he's the son of a judge.
Would you step up if you were called upon?
Me?
To become a judge?
Let me shock you. I may not look it. I am 66 years old.
Wow.
Going to 67. So when am I going to serve? If you take me to the Supreme Court now, the retirement age is 17 years. So you want me to go there and deprive younger people by going to spend just 3 years?
You said nothing good comes too late.
No, nothing good. No. Not at this time. No.
That's your quote.
Judges have a lot to do. I'm not cut out for that. For example, their reticence. I'm boisterous, I'm effervescent. I can't go to the bench and be caged in, for example. So you must know what you want. Yeah, Ozekhome.
They don't have Ozekhome.
So I will continue to educate, I will continue to lecture, I will continue to energize us as I've always been doing. We cannot sleep facing the same side of the bed.
Well,
those who want to
thank
go
you.
to the judiciary, let them go. Those who want to practice and advocate like us, let them be. God bless Nigeria.
All right, we do thank you very much indeed for coming on. Professor Mike Ozekhome, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and the Visiting Professor for Afe Babalola University.
And many other universities. Not just Afe Babalola University.
There you go.
Abia State University also.
Time won't even permit
there
us
are
to
many.
go there because business.
There are 6 visiting professors to 6 universities by God's grace.
All right, there you go.